Hi, I'm John, the founder of the Osmedican Group, and I'm here today to introduce our first vodcast with Dr. Sarah Mcdonald. Before we kick off on that, I'll give you a little bit of background stories to why I'm here and why we're in the medicinal space. It started 8 years ago for me, where my brother came down with cancer, stomach cancer. And unbeknown to me and our family, he was actually getting a hold of CBD oil from the black market. And of course, we struggled with that in our family because we don't know about cannabis and we don't know about CBD. So, him being a very conservative barrister at the time, he didn't share it with anyone until the 11th hour when we found out that he was self-medicating on this particular oil. So once we got past the shock of it, I had a very deliberate conversation around why this was something that he was feeling the need to actually go out and procure, because of course it's from the black market, which comes with all of these risks, in particular at that time. And he's not someone that would actually have medical cannabis or be interested in hokey pokey stuff. He's very sort of in the system and not interested in either alternative or holistic health. So for him to say that this was something that he sourced, seeked out, and that actually benefited him, made me sit up and listen just that bit more, because if he benefited from it and he, being the conservative nature that he is went out to find and discover this, I wonder all about this. What is it? So that started the journey of me doing the research and looking at the global landscape of the CBD industry in particular, and quite the eye-opener. It was legal in one country, not legal in the other. And of course, that confused me because I thought, well, why is this not legal if it's useful and beneficial? And more so, how can we get it to become legal? So at that time, I was very much belligerent, is the word, because I figured that why is it that someone in Canada, which is where my brother lives, can actually access this medicine, and yet my brother in Scotland couldn't. And in fact, he could, but only through the black market. So that opened up to me the research and the landscape and looking at what countries do what. And it led to me actually saying, I'll be an investor of a medical cannabis, which is the early days thinking company. But having done the research again and looked at the companies that I would have been interested in, I realised that from a regulatory perspective, it was quite impossible, because they wanted to build it and grow and they will come type of mentality. And of course, being Scottish, I like to look at, well, what's the smartest way of doing something and how can we cut through it rather than actually building large scale facilities and so forth. So it went from a family purpose, then it went to, well, if we could help bring this to people all over the world, it would make me feel good. And it would also be a very good sort of legacy for my brother, who since died with his cancer. But he was quite convinced that the CBD oil that he was taking, it helped him and just extended his time with us. It didn't obviously cure and it wouldn't do anything like that, but it's something that helped certainly him. So that was the reason why I got into it. And then, of course, Ask Sam makes perfect sense, because as a patient, I want to have my own personal assistant that manages everything that I need to manage in relation to my medicine, my dispensing, my appointments, my bookings. I don't want to have to think about it. I just need an Ask Sam assistant. So that's why we actually looked into how we could connect that type of modern technology in a safe way into the hands of every Australian.
Amazing. Thanks for that, John. Well, my name's Dr. Sarah Mcdonald. So I'm a medical doctor. Going back a little bit, so I actually grew up on a farm out in the sticks. My mum homeschooled 4 of us. I had always grown up wanting to do more natural therapy, but I pursued chiropractic first. So I was a chiropractor first. And then I wanted to do more, so decided to punish myself and go back and do a medical degree. And during that time also had 2 girls, so I'm also a mum. And after I did that, I did my training up on the Central Coast and then went into psychiatry because I felt that was the most holistic way I could treat people. And then COVID happened and my beautiful mum died during COVID. And that was like a huge shock to me and I needed to take time away. So I actually ended up moving into medicinal cannabis at that time, which was for me a huge breath of fresh air, growing up with a very natural-based mum. So I loved the idea of doing medicinal cannabis and it was so helpful to people. I couldn't believe the results I was seeing. It was amazing. But then after doing that for a few years, there was a big regulatory crackdown in the whole medicinal cannabis industry. And unfortunately, I was one of the doctors that was involved in that.
Oh, yes, I heard about that. It's about 60-something doctors in the end.
There were a lot.
Were impacted.
It was a very, very stressful event for me. I would say one of the most stressful things I've been through in my life. And it made me question what I was doing in medicine. And I needed to take a break from that after that. I had wonderful supportive friends and family, which was great. But I decided to step away from medicine and do something different at that time. And I actually ended up speaking, going around Australia and speaking about the experience because I felt it was really important to advocate for clinicians' mental health. Because I don't know if you're aware, John, but doctors have a higher suicide risk than the average person. Female doctors in particular, 2.8 times higher. And so to me, I was amazed that we were put through that process. So it was really important for me to share not just the process, but I actually wanted to share the realness of it, like the real impact it had, the tears, the terror, the fear, all that kind of thing, because a lot of the time it never gets talked about. So, and it was doing that I actually met you, and you and Rohit, the CEO, and I feel that's where our journey kind of really started.
Yes. And I can remember that quite vividly. And I have to say that to the listeners, the crackdown wasn't about prescribing medical cannabis or cannabinoids. It was about, do you have that information? Have you ticked this box and have you ticked that box? And have you, got the notes from the previous clinician and so forth. So it's important to mention the distinction. It wasn't about medical cannabis. It was about not having notes. And as I say, enter Ask Sam. This is the problem that it solves, because we don't want our clinicians to be bombarded with, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. And yet we know the burden of actually providing that data and that information goes right back to the patient experience, which is what we've talked about before. We don't get to be present with the patient because we're so busy trying to protect ourselves and collect all of the data that we need to do so to satisfy the compliance.
Absolutely.
We all know that when you're talking about prescribing, in particular medical cannabis, it's more complex than people think. It's about gathering the notes and the data and all of the information that is required for, say, the PSU and AFRA and so forth. And when I looked at that problem, I thought to myself, how can any clinician keep up with the framework? It's a national framework. Everyone's got a different rule in each state. So If you were to look at any clinician's notes, I'm sure that, there would be gaps. And of course, that then actually made our group think about how we can solve that problem, which is what we've done. As well as from a patient's perspective, what we found for patients is that they were constantly, each month they had to go and get their scripts. They were constantly looking around where they're going to get this medicine because not one pharmacy had it, or perhaps it went out of stock, or perhaps it was discontinued. So there was patients at their wit's end, not being able to access their information. And the other big problem was for them was their scripts. So they were provided a script, or in fact, they weren't provided the script. That was being sent direct to a pharmacy, not of the patient's choice, but of the company's choice. So it meant, therefore, that the patients didn't have ownership of their own scripts. So every month, there would be a number of phone calls to our clinics asking for new scripts. This is run out. I need a new appointment, or it's a last-minute script requirement. So what we did is designed an easy-to-use tech that would actually solve all of those problems. So in terms of us reaching out to you, in fact, it was me personally.
It was you, John. Thank you, John. I think too, there's this misconception that doctors have this fantastic job and they have this brilliant life. Doctors have, I think, almost 5 times the rate of drug abuse than like other professions. Female doctors are 2.8 times more likely to commit suicide than the average person. So there's a lot of stress on clinicians that people don't realize that's there. And I think I understand that better than anyone else, particularly having gone through the whole regulatory process and knowing how stressful that is. When I was in medical school, I had this vision of what medicine would be like, and it was nothing like what I thought. It was so different. And at some point in the whole medical journey, the paper became more important than the patient. And that's when I realized something has to change. So you spend so much time like writing documentation, making sure you're doing everything that's what you need to do, which is compliant. But there's so much work involved in that. And I have lots of friends that are still working as clinicians, and a lot of them really don't enjoy what they do. It's stressful. So to be able to bring some of that passion back and that authentic joy back for what you actually want to do and being a clinician and being present, right? Being present with a patient. I can't tell you how many times, you would speak to a patient and you just didn't feel like you could give them your full attention because you had to be writing your notes or had to be thinking about what do I need to do for regulatory issues for this patient, all those sorts of things. I think for me, this is about connection, right? It's about connecting doctors back to patients, about connecting doctors back to their families, connecting them back to themselves and to things they actually really love doing. And as you know, John, I'm a very theatrical person. So, being able to speak to doctors and I think try and convey some of that enthusiasm and passion for this. I really enjoy that process, and to meet lots of different doctors now and to be able to feel like I'm actually doing something that's affecting the greater good and something that I'm really proud of.
I must, on that note, I've just remembered that I had a consultation myself with the doctor a couple of weeks ago. And now that I know, for example, about Ask Sam, it sort of was very glaring to me that the clinician, the doctor, didn't look at me once in the consultation room. She did as I was walking in the door. And I understand why, because she's got to do blood reports, she's got to get information up on her computer. And I'm thinking, of course you can't keep eye contact with the patient when you've got to make all of these notes. So I had a different appreciation for the clinician. Before I just thought, I better be quiet and not ask anything until they've stopped typing. Which then means when they stop typing, it's time to get up off the seat and go. So you end up not asking the questions that you might need to be asking at the time. So I now have a different appreciation because they've got a lot of admin to actually do within a very short period of time.
Yes, they do, and particularly in busy clinics, and they need to get through a lot of patients. And we do have, a doctor shortage in various areas around Australia. So, yeah, there's a lot they have to think about, and there's a lot they have to contemplate, and depending on what area of medicine that you're in. I think the other thing is that AI is here to stay in medicine and in healthcare in general, and I believe it will make clinicians' lives much easier. I think it's figuring out how to do that in the most compliant way, so doctors can still fulfill their regulatory requirements, their registration requirements, patient privacy, all those kinds of things, but allowing them to outsource the repetitive tasks, the things that basically AI can do, to something like Ask Sam, which will then save them time, because really that's the one thing that doctors can never get back is their time, and that's the thing that is most precious. If you ever try to get an appointment or speak to a doctor on the phone, it's very hard, as you'll know, because their time is so valuable. So that's the thing that I'm really passionate about is allowing clinicians to have time again for themselves, for their families, for the things they want to do.
Yeah, and I think that's very well said, because I think more people in general are getting burned out. So the more we can help each other, I think the better. I did want to sort of talk about the difference between, say, ChatGPT and Ask Sam, because someone contacted me yesterday out of the blue and was asking me some questions around, well, how does this work? Privacy, where is Ask Sam getting its information? We know that ChatGPT can be fanciful, it can make things up. So I actually hadn't thought about that in terms of from their perspective. So I think it's really important for us to sort of clear up any myths around where the Ask Sam information comes from. So is that something that you want to share with us?
Yeah, I can briefly share about that. The thing with ChatGPT is that it's open source, right? So it can get information from anywhere on the internet. With something more AI-driven and specific like Ask Sam, it's closed source. So it's been trained on specific medical literature, medical journals, guidelines. So it can't make anything up. Everything is factual. And so that, I think, is one of the things that is amazing about what we're doing. To me, it's like having, if you have like a personal assistant that you just say, can you just do this? Can you check this up? Can you write this for me? I would love that around my home. That would be amazing. Can you just give me a coffee? Can you clean up the house? Blah, blah, blah. But it's like having an assistant like that, but in your clinic where you can just ask. So the information is going to be accurate according to the most recent and relevant guidelines. But you also know that it's going to be able to do those jobs for you in seconds rather than you spending minutes to hours doing stuff or writing up things, because that is really where a lot of time is spent for a lot of clinicians and is doing all the paperwork. And I think that's probably true in a lot of industries now too. Anyway, there's so much paperwork and red tape, and a lot of people get bogged down with that idea of having to fill out so much paperwork. So the ability to have something to do that for the doctor, I think. So some people might say, oh, but AI is going to remove the human element, but I completely disagree with that. I actually think this will allow doctors to be even more human, right? Because they won't be burdened by having to do all that kind of stuff. They'll actually be able to be present and to be more themselves in the situation that they're in. So I actually see it's a way of bringing humanity and like the soul
that connection,
back into healthcare.
And that connection, as you sort of mentioned. Look, from speaking to this patient yesterday with all of these questions, I realised there is a lot of fear. There's fear in their information being leaked. There's fear of the security of it. Now, yes, we have it fully secured. It has to be in Australia. But again, the general patient might not actually be aware of that. So I found that there's a lot of fear, and I gave I gave them an example. One of them, the examples is with the calculator. Like, of course, I don't know if you know this, Sarah, but in the time of the calculator when that came out, it was uproar from every university, every college, every school, every teacher came out with picket fence, sort of like, placards to say, ban the calculator. And the reason is because it was something that could do something that didn't need the mind to think about it. So if you want to go to add 2 equals, it will come up and tell you. And it's the same answer every time. It can't be 5, it can't be 3, it's always going to be 4. And of course, that's AI in its days. It created a disruption. It made people think, oh, this is going to make us mindness or mind-numbingness, because we're not going to be using our brain. So fast forward now, I don't think we could ever think about not living with a calculator.
I think even 7 years, if you look at the rate of growth of information, and the way I see AI is that it allows such a rapid way to assimilate and to address all that information at a much faster rate than a human could. So it's actually not about mind numbing, or reducing, your ability to make decisions or anything like that. It's really just looking at probabilities of data and data sets and finding the most relevant, like out of a whole series of journals. I mean, if AI can search a stack of journals in 2 seconds, that would have taken you, minute, like say half an hour to do. It's not that it's doing your work for you, but it's reducing the time required for you to actually go and look through all that information. So that's how I see AI as it's really giving that work that is that sort of more boring, repetitive work that just requires the time to do that, and it's outsourcing that to an AI, which can do it in a much, much faster time. You are still making the ultimate decision. Someone asked me the other day, so there's no point to have a doctor anymore. And I said, oh no, you still need to have the doctor. Yeah. You still need to have the clinician. But this, I feel, will actually make that connection between the clinician and patient far more meaningful, more present, and enjoyable, I think.
Ask Sam has a big sister called Stella out of the US and out of India. And it's been helping millions of patients, hospitals, governments, and so forth. So it's not something that's brand new. A lot of people have been contacting me from media and asking me, well, where is it? Where are you testing this? How is it? How do we know that it's going to be safe? And of course, knowing what we know, in that you cannot do anything in terms of collecting anybody's data or information unless it's had some level of scrutiny with government and it's been picked to pieces by the people that need to review technology before it goes live. It's been quite the journey to get it to that point. But the security seems to be something that people are still coming up and asking questions around. So we need to be thinking about how we make that point, I think, very, very clear with all of our communications.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think it's just really about that education. It's talking about it. It's being really open and honest. A really big thing for me, and I know you know this about me, John, is that like I'm a very straightforward, I try to be as authentic as possible. And I feel like that's such an important part, especially in today's society where we have so much social media. We have like fake connections through. You could have like 1,000 friends on social media and still feel lonely, you've got none. Right? So to me, it's so important to have human connection and to be authentic in that, and that's how I really foresee what we're doing with this. And so to allay those fears for people as well, it really is letting them know about, all the compliance issues with the security and privacy and things like that. And then allowing people to try it and test it. And you think about like internet banking, like
yes, that's a good point.
Before we used to go into the bank and do everything. Now you wouldn't even dream. It's almost like a pain in the butt to go into the bank. You just use internet banking. I feel like this is the same thing.
Yes.
It will just take time to be accepted. It's here to stay. But I think that one of the reasons too why I really decided to come on board with the Ozmedican team and ask Sam is because of the people behind it. I could sense the authenticity and I could sense the warmness and the genuine vision that was there. And to me, that was so important because I didn't want to be around people that were like fake, and just driven by corporate greed. I know you guys are driven by a much bigger vision, and I know you've got a big heart, and everyone on the team is amazing. And so for me, like, life has actually become enjoyable and fun, and I love what I do, and I love being able to, share that with others. So yeah, that's great. So
how you feel. So that'll be interesting for the listeners and the viewers back home.
Yes.
I'll keep you to that then. 7 years.
We'll circle back here in 7 years.
so just as a wrap up. So why does Ask Sam exist? Well, Ask Sam is for a clinician and it's also for a patient. So from a clinician perspective, it means that they'll never need to worry about typing notes. They'll never need to worry about whether they've actually forgot to write some notes. They'll never need to worry about writing a referral letter, going in and finding a template and working it out and adding the information in. Everything is now at their voice command or at their fingertips. So in terms of a clinician, they will save about 2 hours a day. They're getting to go to the children's activities more. They're getting to go to the gym. And one guy the other day said that he's now got the best swing on his tennis because he's been able to use his time to sort of do what he wants to do. So I think from a clinician's perspective, you're right, it's here to stay, and this will actually revolutionise the way that they actually practice medicine from now on.
So Ask Sam is like the next evolutionary step in that, which is that it is a scribe. It's an amazing scribe, but it has added features of that. But really it's a comprehensive virtual AI platform that is like having a virtual assistant in the room with you. So from, letters to guidelines to drug interactions to treatment plans to asking questions about comorbidities, customized questions and answers about the patient in front of you. Ask Sam does all that for you in such a short amount of time, but it means that also the answers are relevant to the patient that's in front of you. And I think that's amazing. And again, it also minimizes errors. It minimizes the risk of making mistakes.
Yes.
If you have complex comorbidities in different patients, you have lots of different drugs. Like some patients are on 10 different medications, right?
Yeah.
So so you need to sort of figure out, and Ask Sam can figure that out because he can like analyze, reels and reels of information so quickly. So it means that you have that added support, I think, there. So that's why I think it's fantastic. So yes.
Yeah. Cannabis that came up in the system, rather than them panicking, rather than them thinking, oh, I'm embarrassed and I've got my mother-in-law in the back seat here and I've got my children screaming and they don't have the script. It causes an awful lot of anxiety because they then need to phone the clinic or they need to phone the pharmacy or they need to try and get hold of the doctor. And then, of course, there's letters that the doctor needs to prepare to put together as well for court matters and so forth, if that's what it comes to. And whereas now we have Ask Sam takes all of that pain away because you can ask Sam to bring up all of your medicinal history.
They're able to have whatever, like if they need to travel, have a travel letter, things like that. So they can access it very quickly, and that's really important. And it's for any sort of medications. It's just, not just medicinal cannabis. I think it's relevant to anything. So if the patient, like their treatment letters, they could have in their patient app, all their scripts, their upcoming appointments, things like that. So I think it's going to be revolutionary for patients and for clinicians. So I think it's exciting times, and I can't wait to look back on this in a couple of years' time, and we'll come back to this first podcast and go, wow, we've come so far.
Lots has happened. I mean, I don't know if you picked up how AI is helping to detect cancer.
Oh, no, I didn't actually.
Yeah, so it's actually, they can home in to the specific areas, let's say if it's breast cancer. So it's less invasive. So the actual AI can go direct and recognize and pick up the cancer spots and where they are in the body now. So the AI is here, as you said, to stay. And as I said, it's all about having it work for you rather than you working for it. And the last thing I would say is that people have often said to me, well, this means that you're going to cut your staff and you're not going to have any people because you don't need them, because Ask Sam can manage all of these activities. But nothing could be further from the truth. We actually need more people. We need more people because behind Ask Sam, there's a human.
Oh, absolutely.
So at every aspect, there's a human there, and you can talk to a human as well. So I think that's one of the comfort zones that I would prefer, which is why we obviously have it put in place. I want to talk to someone when I want to talk to someone. And that's where I think it gives us that level of comfort.